Welcome, everybody. It's another edition of Screen Time. I'm Gary Tanguay, along with Drew Yanno. It's movies, streaming, and everything in between. Drew, we got a big show today. We're going to be talking about the delay of Ted Lasso. And also, I have a pick-to-click, if you will, on Stars called Heels. And Drew is going to go back and tell everybody why Butch, Cassidy and a Sundance Kid is perhaps the greatest script ever. I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think it'll say something like that. So let's start with Ted Lasso. Here's the latest, Drew. What we have is that they weren't happy with the football scenes. So they said, you know what, we're going to delay it. This is according to TV Line. Brendan Hunt, who's one of the co-creators, who plays Coach Beard, said, the football stuff isn't just where we want it to be, and that's why we're taking longer to shoot. They expected to have the series in the can in August, but now it's probably going to be October or later.
Just the football scenes?
Well, that's what he said. So I've also heard that as a creative group, which is headed by Sudeikis and Bill Lawrence, they just weren't happy with it. So they just said, you know what, we're going to scrap some of what we've done and we're going to start over, which good for them. It's tough on us because we're waiting for it, but good for them.
They're at that critical moment. The third season is always a tough season for any series that goes beyond one, I think, because I don't know if it's a natural thing in storytelling or what, but you kind of exhaust things. We all know the characters now, and we've got all these relationships, which I'm about to go into. And I think, where do you go? You make one false move and it affects everything else. It's like a tumbler. Everything falls, crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last one. I mean, how much longer can it go on?
You know, Drew, that's a really good point. That season 3 is always tough, where you can tell the writers might be out of gas. I mean, Shameless was one of my favorites, and it ran probably 6 years too long.
And oftentimes in the third season, you get new writers, and you can tell almost immediately that there's new writers. And I don't know if that's the case here. Sudeikis seems like pretty much in control, and he writes a lot, as does Bill
Lawrence. Yeah, Brendan Hunt, Bill Lawrence, the rest of them. Yeah. Yeah, no,
and Brett Goldstein, doesn't he write?
Right, he's the head writer. Yeah, he's in it too. Yes, that's right. So from what I understand, the plan all along was 3 seasons.
Well,
I've heard that rumbling.
Probably for the same reasons we're talking.
Right. That 3 seasons is really all they can do, or where they can maintain the quality. Now, if you're Apple, what do? You say, come on, man, you can do 4, you can do 5. Come on, right? If you're Apple.
Yeah, I think, I can't put myself in their shoes because I've never been in a development meeting in my life other than as a screenwriter. So I don't know. As a decision maker, I don't know. They don't seem so crassly commercial,
Right.
So,
well, and here's a good example of it. Back in the days of network television, you had to be ready to go September 1, the fall season, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they wouldn't have this luxury.
No, you couldn't shoot over. You had what you had.
And that's what streaming allows you to do. Also, they have the clout. I mean, they won a bunch of Emmys.
Yeah. And if you look back, I rewatched the last episode, and we had a lot of stuff hanging out there. And, you start out with the obvious because it was the last scene is Nate's the villain now. They took this character who everybody loved in the first year because, he was just this locker room boy who becomes a coach, and it's this great story, and you feel bad for him with his family, and he can't get a girl. And then at the end, he's like, I almost thought they put it on a little heavy. Like, he kisses Keely, he's crass, he's pissed off. And I didn't quite buy why he was so pissed off at Ted, but leave that aside. That's a juicy thing for the third season. You can take that through all the episodes, I'm sure. And get, an arc back in the other direction, probably. And then, everybody talks about Ted and Rebecca getting together. That hasn't happened. It's sort of set up because Sam and Rebecca, it looks like, aren't going to keep going. But then you got Sam's going to own a restaurant. What's that going to be? Roy and Keely, of course, everybody's favorite. So that looks like we don't know what happened. He went away by himself, supposedly. We don't know.
6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you even got, Trent from The Independent, and I'm sure he's coming back. That's the kind of thing I'd use as a writer. him going out, I'd have him come back in some fashion later on. And the doctor too, because I love the doctor because she got Ted to tell us his backstory. You know, father commits suicide. You know, this is why he's the way he is, and so there's a lot of meat out there they can put in the stew. And the question is, you know, do they put it in a satisfactory way? So far, they have.
Well,
But
I think you're right. I think that both the doctor and Trent come back, because of the way it was set up at the end, right? The way Trent is at the end, and he locked his keys in his car for what?
Alexa, yeah.
I mean, but you know, then you wonder, because Keeley is going to run her PR firm, does Trent move into the media relations arena, which is what happens quite often. People leave the media and they go into media relations. And from what I understand and what I've read, Trent was supposed to be 2 lines. You know, that's all he was. Trent.
You mean originally?
Yeah, originally Trent was going to be 2 lines, and he's played by James Lance, and he was going to ask 2 questions. And this just goes to show there are no small parts, only small actors. And the whole thing, I mean, really, let's talk about Trent for a minute, because we've talked about, we know a lot of the other characters. As I rewatched the last episode, like you, he said, what did he say? Ted says something like, "I don't hold it against you," or something like that. And then Trent says, "Well, yeah, can you tell by the whole vibe? You know, the whole vibe." I mean,
The bike thing, you know, did you get hurt on a bike? And, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is Trent had, you know, ethics. He turned himself in.
Right.
He gave up his source, which is great. I like that.
Right. I mean, and so you like the character, and the whole character is, I love the vibe. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a cool dude with long hair, and he's, you know, just calm, cool, and, you know, does the right thing. I mean, he's a very good journalist.
Yeah.
He's doing his job. And also, I think it is important that the doctor comes back. So I think you're right. I think both those things are going to happen. I think those things are going to happen. Now, interestingly enough, going back to Nate, what I read is that in episode 7 of season 1, Nate, who's played by Nick Mohammed, they were shooting the gala scene with Ted. I think it was episode 4, episode 7. They were shooting the gala scene where Ted and Nate are all at a table. And while they were breaking from filming, Mohammed said to the British press, said, Jason already knew what was going to happen to my character and was talking to me about it then. Wow. He said, Nate's going to go dark. So that was the plan. Now, it's interesting that you said you didn't quite buy it, because I didn't either. And you're not the only one. I surfed the web a little bit, and a lot of people felt it came out of nowhere.
Well, when that scene where he attacks Ted at halftime of the game, or whatever they call it, halftime over there.
Yeah. In the last episode.
Yeah, he says, you know, you abandoned me, you left me alone. And I'm like, why did you need anything more? You're a coach now. They're using your plays. What did he do to you? And I thought that was a little odd. But they played up, you know, him on Twitter blowing up and all that stuff. So, you know, it happens in sports. Something goes to somebody's head. You know, we've seen it time and time and again over the years.
Well, what Mohammed said, because he was asked that question, what Mohammed said was, well, if you go back and you look at the script, and Drew, you've taught me in screenwriting, you have to leave nuggets along the trail, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I thought I didn't.
Or use your nuggets. In other words, you're writing and you drop a nugget and you think, that's interesting. I might come back to that at some point. And yes, you need nuggets.
And Mohammed pointed out that they had nuggets, but I was like, I don't know if they were, well, big enough nuggets. He said when they brought in Roy because they needed a dog, and Nate said, I'll be the dog, and Ted laughed at him. And the other nugget was Nate gave Ted a Christmas gift, and Ted didn't really pay attention to it.
Oh, so yeah.
It was like, wow, man, that Nate's a really damaged guy. It's
well, like, remember his family, you know, his family, right. His mother loves him, his father, it's the classic father-son thing, and you got it with Ted, right?
Right.
So, you know, there's that. I can see it, I suppose. I'm anxious to see what happens to him.
You know, the thing about Sudeikis is that he really brings in the other characters. For a guy that's the star of the show and is basically in control, he realizes it's going to be better if everybody else has their time.
Seinfeld all over again.
Totally.
Not the same show, obviously, but
Same
Jerry
concept.
Seinfeld did the same thing. Yeah.
Well, isn't one of your favorite segments of Ted Lasso the Diamond Dogs? I love it.
Oh, it kills me.
Kills me. The
Yeah.
Diamond Dogs. And you know, the other guy, I forgot, a guy comes in with his glass, comes in,
Yeah.
slides into the window. Oh, you're back. My office.
Well, and they sum it up perfectly when Roy says at the end, you mean all we do is we come here and we talk and we don't solve any problems? And they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. So I think that I'm very uncomfortable with it because I loved Nate before. And maybe that was the purpose of it, where Sudeikis said, we're going to really put people through the meat grinder with this, because this show is not what we thought it was going to be.
No.
At
And
all.
you couldn't have Nate the same for three.
No, you can't. He's
3
got to
years,
evolve.
3 seasons. He's got to evolve.
But I mean, he's a real
Yeah.
dick. I mean, he's turned, and also the hair, you know how the hair grade,
Yeah.
that was intentional.
Yeah.
And then it's gotta be, so what do you think, Drew, if you're running the show, if you're the showrunner of Ted Lasso, what would you do in season 3? Do you have any idea?
I wouldn't do Ted and Rebecca. It's too, everybody expects it. It's like moonlighting, you know, it's
Right.
remember the old moonlighting show? You can't do it. I wouldn't do that. Everybody loves Roy and Keeley, so you got to do something there. I wouldn't have her go back with,
Jamie Tatt.
that. Can't do that. But you got to have Roy. I'd have Roy. He's on his way to being a coach, obviously, I think. So there's that. I told you I'd bring back Trent in some capacity, the doctor, and I love Sam. So I'd get Sam back together with Rebecca.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that relationship could last.
It'll last for another, season.
Anyway,
Certainly.
Right, another season. And I think that's, you know what, and I think that's all that Sudeikis and Lawrence are going to do, because they're putting so much effort into this. I think they want to make sure they go out with a bang. And I think it's going to be worth the wait.
Well, then they're going to have some supreme, finale.
You know what I think the finale is going to be is, and I think you might have mentioned this to me. So if I stole your idea, please tell me. What a writer
How
stealing
good
an
it is.
idea? Huh?
Then how good it is.
Yeah. I think that I think Trent goes in and takes Keeley's place. The doctor sticks around, obviously. I think Roy becomes the head coach and Ted goes back to America to face, I think you said that to me once at breakfast or something. Ted goes back to America to face his demons or to pick up where he left off or something.
Now I would have him go back and be a football coach in American football because of his success over there.
I think so. And then what happens with Coach Beard? Does he come with him? He's got to come with him.
No, he's going to stay over there. He's going to marry that girl.
Oh, that's right. He's going to marry the girl. That's right. All right. Anything else on Ted? Are you good? Are we good?
I'm looking forward to it. I forget how much I like it until I watch it again. And I had watched the whole first 2 seasons again because my wife wouldn't watch it the first time. And then finally, all our friends kept telling her how great it was. And she said, how come you never told me this? And I laughed and said, what do you mean? How come I didn't tell you for 101st time how great it was?
So good.
No, anyway, but it holds up. It's one of those.
It's so good. And I may have mentioned this before, but everybody passed on it but Apple.
Yeah.
Everybody passed. They took it.
Well, that's Hollywood. We talk about it all the time. And it's a great segue into Butch Cassidy because, as the great William Goldman once said, nobody knows anything.
Do you want to talk about Butch now? Would you like to?
No, talk about
you want
the show that I haven't watched that you've watched.
All right. So anyways, if you haven't, this is a great chance to catch up on Ted Lasso on Apple Plus. It's terrific. And there is not, and it just goes to show the Brits in acting. There is not a weak actor in the bunch.
No.
Not in the bunch. I mean, these people are unbelievable.